I came across a headline recently that said, "How many inches women actually want, based on science." And I had to smile, not because it was funny, but because it was so familiar. It's the kind of headline that stops men in their tracks. Curious, a little anxious, maybe even hopeful. Because underneath that question, beneath the numbers and the measurements and the scientific data, there's something so deeply human. There's this quiet, unspoken fear: am I enough? That question lives in so many men, tucked behind the jokes, behind the bravado, behind the gym hours and the mirrors and the performance. Am I enough? And the irony is, the world keeps giving us the wrong answers. It tells us to measure our worth in inches, in dollars, in muscles, in status, in the reactions we get from women. It teaches men to chase symbols of value instead of cultivating the substance of it. But let's be honest, that's not what women actually want. It's not what anyone really wants. Because what makes a man desirable, truly desirable, isn't a number. It's an energy, its presence, its depth. Science can measure length and width, but it can't measure warmth, safety, humor, devotion, curiosity. The qualities that actually ignite desire and sustain love. And if you talk to real women, not in the clickbait surveys, but in quiet, honest conversations, you'll hear something profound. What they remember isn't the size of a man's body. It's the size of his soul. It's how he made them feel. Did he listen? Did he see them, really see them? Did he make them feel safe enough to open, to laugh, to trust? Those are the moments that linger. The touches that mean something, the words that stay. But we live in a world that has turned intimacy into a competition. It tells men to compare, to perform, to conquer. And it tells women to evaluate, to judge, to demand. And in that battlefield of expectations, both sides lose. Men lose their softness. Women lose their safety. And connection, real, heart-opening connection, disappears. So, yes, maybe there are studies about averages and preferences and charts. But I think the deeper conversation we need to have isn't about how many inches women want. It's about how deeply human beings long to feel connected. Because the truth is, we're not measuring inches. We're measuring presence. You can have the perfect body, the perfect technique, the perfect performance. But if your mind is elsewhere, if your heart is closed, if your touch isn't born from care, none of it matters. People don't crave perfection. They crave realness. They crave to be felt. Not handled, not impressed, but felt. And that's something science can't put on a chart. Now, I know some people might roll their eyes at this. They might say, that's just talk. Chemistry is physical. And yes, chemistry is physical. Biology plays its part. Attraction has its patterns. But what sustains chemistry? What turns a spark into a flame that keeps burning? Is emotional intimacy. When two people meet at that level, the physical becomes amplified. Every touch becomes electric, not because of anatomy, but because of authenticity. You can't fake presence. You can't substitute connection with technique. Because what a woman, what a partner, what a human being truly wants isn't something you can hold in your hand. It's something you can hold in your heart. And if we're brave enough to look beneath the surface, to ask what lies under that question, am I enough? We'll discover that what most men are really longing for isn't validation. It's permission. Permission to be whole, to be seen not as performers, but as people. To not have to prove their worth through size or strength or status, to be loved as they are, imperfect, evolving human. And women too are longing for the same. To be cherished, not judged. To be understood beyond appearance. To feel a depth that society rarely gives space for. We've built a culture that prizes performance over presence. But what if we turned that around? What if men were raised to ask not, how big am I? But, how open am I? How present am I? How kind? What if we taught boys that strength isn't measured by dominance, but by sensitivity? That masculinity isn't a competition, but a capacity. The capacity to protect, to provide, yes, but also to understand, to empathize, to stay when things get uncomfortable. That's the kind of man who leaves an impression. Not on the body, but on the soul. I remember once hearing a woman say, the sexiest thing a man ever did for me was listen. Not nod, not fix, not interrupt. Just listen. Because when a man listens with his whole being, when he's not trying to impress or control or perform, he creates a kind of space that feels sacred. A space where the other person can exhale and be real. That's what intimacy is. Not just the meeting of bodies, but the meeting of truths. And in that kind of space, nobody's counting inches. Nobody's comparing. Nobody's competing. They're connecting. And connection. That's what every study, every therapist, every wise person comes back to. Connection is what sustains human life. So maybe, instead of asking, what do women want? We should be asking, what do humans need? Because when you strip away gender and ego and pride, the answer is surprisingly simple. We want to feel loved. We want to feel chosen. We want to feel safe enough to be ourselves. We want to know that our presence matters. That we can be touched and changed and remembered, not because of how we look or what we have, but because of who we are. That's what we're really measuring. That's the real science of attraction. The way two energies meet and recognize something familiar in each other. You can't quantify that in inches. You can't publish that in a medical journal. But you can feel it, deep in your bones. When it's there. And when it is, it changes you. It changes how you walk through the world. How you show up for others. How you love yourself. Because here's the quiet truth. When a man learns to stop measuring and starts feeling, his whole world expands. When he stops asking, am I enough? And starts asking, am I true? He becomes magnetic in a way that no statistic could ever explain. That's when confidence shifts from performance to peace. That's when he no longer needs to chase approval. Because he's rooted in authenticity. And that, right there, is the most attractive quality a human being can have. Authenticity. When you know yourself. When you've made peace with your imperfections, your wounds, your worth. You radiate something that no physique or number can replace. And women, men, everyone feels that. It's not visible, but it's palpable. It's the quiet confidence that says, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm not afraid to be real. So maybe the question isn't, how many inches do women want? Maybe it's, how deeply do we dare to show up? Because when you show up deeply, when you're fully present, when you care, when you connect, it changes everything. Touch becomes sacred. Conversation becomes foreplay. Trust becomes the foundation. And love stops being a performance and starts being a practice. And that's where real intimacy lives. Not in the body alone, but in the meeting of two souls who are both saying, I'm here with you. All of me. Now, I know it's tempting to think, that's poetic, but the physical still matters. Of course it does. We're physical beings. Attraction has a language of its own, but the language of desire is richer than we've been taught. It includes laughter, respect, surprise, tenderness, even silence. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. Because the truth is, people don't fall in love with bodies. They fall in love with being seen. They fall in love with how they feel when they're with you. And that has nothing to do with inches. It has everything to do with intention. So the next time you find yourself wondering, am I enough? Pause and breathe. Remember that worth is not something you earn. It's something you remember. You were enough the day you were born. The world just taught you to forget. And if you can return to that place of wholeness, if you can stand in your skin and say, this is me, imperfect, human, alive, you will attract not just admiration, but connection. And connection is what everyone is truly craving. That's what the studies don't measure, but the heart always knows. Because no woman, no man, no partner is lying awake thinking about inches. They're thinking about how you made them feel. Did they feel respected? Did they feel desired, not objectified? Did they feel safe enough to open? Did they feel loved? That's the real question. And if you can answer yes to that, even once, you've already given more than any statistic could promise. Because at the end of the day, attraction is not about anatomy. It's about energy. It's not about what you have. It's about who you are when you give it. And when who you are is grounded, compassionate, alive. When your presence is honest and generous, you become unforgettable. Not because of your body, but because of your being. So, my friends, the next time you see a headline asking, how many inches women actually want? Smile. Because you already know the truth. What women, what all of us, truly want is depth, integrity, presence, laughter, love. We want someone who's done the inner work, who's learned to listen more than he speaks. Who knows how to be both strong and gentle, disciplined yet open. That's the kind of man who changes lives. That's the kind of love that lasts. Because in the end, it's not about measurements. It's about meaning. And the most meaningful relationships are built not on performance, but on presence. So put down the ruler. Stop counting. Start connecting. Because when you do, you'll realize something liberating: you were never being measured. You were being met. And the more authentically you show up, the more deeply you'll be seen. That, not inches, not numbers, not statistics. That is what women actually want. That's what humans want. To be seen, to be chosen, to be loved, completely, courageously, and without condition. So tonight, when you look in the mirror, don't ask, am I enough? Ask, am I real? Because the truth is, you don't need to be more of anything. Not bigger, not richer, not stronger. You just need to be more yourself. That's what the world is waiting for. That's what love responds to. That's what lasts. Because in the end, it's not about size, it's about soul. And when you lead with that, everything else follows.